Hello everyone, this is my AKAI CR81 8-track stereo cartridge recorder. This is, to date, my most expensive eBay purchase. It's definitely the nicest 8-track recorder I've ever owned. But to put it into perspective, I spent more on this one unit than my entire stereo system combined, which in the grand scheme of things really wasn't a lot. I probably only had about maybe $150 invested in my whole setup, because my compact cassette recorder I only paid $30 for, only paid $7 for that CD player, and then that reel-to-reel machine was inherited from my grandfather. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but my stereo and record changer, the receiver itself, together was only $14, so I really didn't spend much. And then I got the speakers for free and had to fix them up. So yeah, I think I'm barely pushing 100 with that. I'd have to do all the math again. For anyone who's wondering, the grand total was $200 plus $40 shipping for this thing. It is in very nice condition, with the exception of this one minor ding up here. Cosmetically, I mean, it's beautiful. As it stands right now, the machine is working. However, there's a caveat. Being that this is from 1973, the electrolytic capacitors are starting to show their age. The right channel is significantly louder than the left channel, but therefore I have the right volume adjusted accordingly for that. I have the left set to just a notch before wide open, and then the right volume is set 2 notches before wide open. So anyway, we're going to open this up. I'm going to count the capacitors, order the new capacitors for it, and then recap it. And before getting it out on the bench, I thought I'd give another look at it out here. I mean, this thing's in very, very good condition. I know there's a bit of irony, the most expensive piece of my stereo being an 8-track recorder rather than, you know, like the reel-to-reel machine or what have you. And believe it or not, that the price I paid for this is actually relatively reasonable compared to the stuff I've seen on eBay. And even though this is not a particularly large unit, this weighs about 20 pounds. They really didn't skimp out on quality here. There was one boo-boo, if you will, from shipping, in that the packing got pressed so tightly against the bottom, and you can see there's a little bit of a dent there from the motor from shipping, but I mean, that popped out. Everything else is perfectly fine on this. I think there's a slight ding here too, but again, you're not going to see that. This plastic vent, on a lot of times, if these are not stored very well, that'll break. It's not broken on this one. And this is kind of cool to see on these earlier machines. Licensed by Learjet Industries Incorporated, USA. So Learjet was the company that made the 8-track cartridge. So it's kind of cool to see that on there. Later machines did not have that. This is about the same size as the torque motors in that thing there. In fact, actually, it's very, very similar. I don't think it's wound the same way because, you know, it's for a different speed, but it's very similar. Like the casing on the motor is very similar. Alrighty, so I always wondered why this made this noise whenever it wasn't running. The motor's actually vibrating a little bit. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be happening, but in playback, pull it out, you don't hear it. Neither in fast forward. I feel like that shouldn't be happening. Then again, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know why the circuitry would be set up to just vibrate the motor like that. I guess whenever we replace the capacitors, we'll find out. So there's going to be one there. There's going to be some for those are the amplifiers for the speakers. There's some, I I don't remember if that's the power supply here. I think it is the power supply. That's probably going to need to be replaced. Those big, these go bad. Those big metal ones like that. These hypothetically should be okay. I've never had an issue with them. Well, in my limited experience with this sort of stuff, I haven't had an issue with those. But I've been told as long as they don't look too bad, they're probably okay. And those are like those are weird. These are like a resistor and capacitor pack. It's very strange. So if I wanted to replace those, I'd have to build something, because I don't think they make stuff like that anymore. Or if they do, it's probably going to be very expensive. Belt's probably fine. It really doesn't slip too much or anything. Let me pull off the bottom. We'll take a look at the bottom. Alright, as you can see, there's that big beefy motor there. There's some caps on that board there, on the underside of it. And there, I believe, are a few on this one too. I think that, yes, this is the preamp board here for the tape head. Not exactly sure what this is here, what exactly that does, but capacitors can be replaced on that. And then there's this guy right there. So I'm going to pull it all apart, write down what I need, and then order the parts for it. Yeah, so I'm going to desolder these wires right here. I've taken a picture so I remember where everything goes, and I don't see anything that these unplug from, unfortunately, so that seems like that's going to have to be the issue. I really wish like they had given me more length, like this one wire. I almost feel like there should be service loops here, but then maybe they were skimping out on wires that day. I've written down what I need. I actually have a couple of these from my mistaken double order for the X355D. Alright, I replaced what I could on that other board. Now we're getting into this one. And being that this is stereo, whatever's on this side is going to be the same as that side pretty much. So I'm just going to count one side and times it by 2, and that's the capacitors I'm going to need. Alright, I got this speaker amplifier out. There's 2 of these, obviously, for 2 channels. I'm a little annoyed with how this is put together. It's going to be pretty difficult to get to the capacitors there, obviously. So, unless I'm looking at something wrong here, this is kind of weird how they have this set up. So I'm probably going to have to desolder this chip here, the Sanyo chip. Yeah, it's definitely not my favorite thing to have to desolder a bunch of stuff like this to get to a component. Had to desolder a couple wires here. So, it's still a nice machine. It's just like, you know, I guess they weren't thinking too much about serviceability with this component, or I guess ease of serviceability, because I can still service this. It's just a pain in the neck. Alrighty, the electrolytic capacitors have come in. So, I'm going to get down to swapping out all the old stuff and putting in new stuff. Because I've got limited space, I don't really want to try and mess around with soldering this many wires together. I've opted to use small wire nuts. I think this will work just fine. I'll probably zip tie them out of the way. Of course, this capacitor I'm putting in is smaller. This will make it so I can at least, you know, pull it out if I need to. It's a little more serviceable this way, so yeah, it's not quite as elegant, but it'll still work. Alright, that capacitor's installed. I lost a screw, at least I think I did, so I found a replacement. It doesn't matter, it'll work. Now I'm going to tackle these speaker amplifiers. I've already gotten this one desoldered, so I'll do this one first. Alrighty, so both speaker amplifiers have been recapped. Now I'm working on the bottom. I recapped this board so far. This is the oscillator board. Now I'm getting at this capacitor here, and I got to replace that resistor as well, just because it'll be easier to replace it rather than try and dig it off of there. So it made the most sense to me. Alrighty, the amplifier board has been recapped. So I'm going to put that back in, and then I'm going to have to find a way to strap the new capacitor here. Yeah, that'll work. So I don't know what would have been here originally before. It almost seems like there would have been cork, but I put this brown felt here to replace whatever would have been there. I'm guessing that's for vibrations. Maybe it just makes it have a tighter fit. I'm not sure, but it's been replaced. So weirdly, the speaker output isn't working anymore, and I'm trying to figure out why. Now, line level works perfectly fine, but the left channel is completely dead, and the right channel is extremely quiet. So I'm not sure if I'm missing a ground or something. I did have an extra black wire that I didn't know where it went, but that's just coming off the line level. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. I don't know, maybe something went wrong with these chips here. I guess I'll have to look over them and see what's going on. It is the next day, and I didn't do anything but resolder something. So I'm gonna look into the left channel now, because the right channel, I'd say the right channel's back. Don't know what I did. So gonna mess around with the left channel, I guess, and see if I can get that one to come back. Alright, some more weirdness. It appears that this fuse that goes to this speaker amp has blown. So there's no power going to the purple wire. Not exactly sure why that has blown. Maybe it got jostled around too much in eBay, and then just me moving it caused it to go out. I'm hoping nothing shorted, unless maybe there was something in there that shorted it previously. But I know at one point there was a screw that had fallen onto a resistor, but it was insulated, so I don't know, maybe that screw wreaked some more havoc. I'm going to try and find a replacement for that. Of course, that's a board that's going to be a bitch and a half to get out, so that's kind of annoying, but whatever. Alright, I went to Ace and got a 1 amp fuse, because they don't sell 0.9 amp fuses, so this was the closest thing. I soldered some excess leads from capacitors on it, and I think this will work. So let's find out. Now this is just getting ridiculous. The other fuse has now blown. However, what I was noticing is a lot of intermittent problems. Like I was tapping on the board and it was coming in and out. So I think this fuse, I think these fuses were already on their way out. Like I said, maybe shipping jostled them around too much. The new fuses I've got are coil type fuses rather than these just little strings here, so hopefully they're more durable. Alright, that's finally worked out. What a stupid detour. Alrighty, so here it is put back together. One other thing that I did not do on camera was I adjusted the playback volume for the left and right channels to kind of balance them out a little bit more. I know that was a problem I was battling to begin with, but now it's about where it should be. I don't have a test cartridge for this, so I've just got a selection of cartridges and balanced it off of that. But anyway, here I'll do a little demo. And the tone control is not going to do anything because that only affects the speaker output. And I am now testing the record functionality, so we'll see how this comes out. This machine made somewhat of a decent recording, but I think this cartridge is worn out, so it's not the greatest, but I got some new cartridges for Christmas I'll have to test. But anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for watching.